You'll be hard-pressed to find anyone who hasn't heard of the Lamborghini name. The famous marque is synonymous with wealth, speed and noise in the automotive world today, but this wasn't always the case. If you don't know the story, the company's origins might come as quite a surprise. Ferruccio Lamborghini, the eldest of 5 children, was born in Renazzo, Italy in 1916. Growing up on the family's farm in the Ferrara province, he developed a keen interest in tools and machines. He left school to attend Fratelli Italia, a technical institute near Bologna, and after receiving his license in 1934, was hired by a factory commissioned to produce army vehicles. When World War II broke out in Italy, the Italian Royal Air Force drafted Lamborghini, an experienced mechanic, and sent him to Rhodes, Greece. He was assigned to the 50th Mixed Manoeuvre Motor Fleet. This fleet was responsible for the maintenance and repair of the Italian army vehicles on the island, including tractors and diesel trucks used to tow aircraft. Ferruccio was soon appointed head of the workshop. In 1943, he survived the Battle of Rhodes between Italian and German forces following Italy's surrender to the Allies. He stayed on the German control island and met his first wife, Clelia. He then became a British prisoner of war when the Germans surrendered in 1945. In 1946, he returned to Italy, taking advantage of an economic recovery incentive program, allowing him to use army surplus material. He opened a machine shop, both repairing and building vehicles in the village of Cento. Sadly, his wife died giving birth to their son, Tonino, in 1947. While in Cento, Lamborghini noticed the local farmers struggling to farm their land without tractors, which they could not afford. It was then that he had the idea of building inexpensive, affordable and easily repairable tractors. In 1948, during the feast day of Cento's patron saint, Lamborghini presented his tractor and sold 11 right away. His father agreed to put up the family's farm as collateral to buy 1,000 engines, and they started mass-producing tractors. By now, Ferruccio also started tuning Fiat cars. He actually built a Fiat Topolino for himself and entered into the 1948 Mille Miglia, but unfortunately the car was wrecked in an accident in Turin. By 1949, he was able to start building tractors from scratch, without using any leftovers. The Lamborghini Trattori factory was founded, and production soon grew even further. Lamborghini tractors became known as the best in Italy. The tractor business made him a very wealthy man, and he started another factory building air conditioning and central heating equipment. This additional enterprise made Ferruccio Lamborghini even more money, and soon he became one of the wealthiest men in Italy. He had a passion for cars and owned multiple exotic cars, including a Mercedes SL300 and a Ferrari 250 GT, among others. Lamborghini thought Ferrari's cars were good, but too noisy and rough to be proper road cars. He categorized them as repurposed track cars with poorly built interiors. He also found that Ferrari's cars were equipped with inferior clutches and required continuous trips to Maranello for rebuilds. Technicians would tuck the car away for several hours to perform the work, much to his annoyance. He had previously expressed dissatisfaction with Ferrari's after-sales service, which he perceived to be substandard. He famously approached Enzo Ferrari to complain about the customer service and poor reliability, but his concerns were dismissed by the Ferrari boss. In growing frustration, he noticed that the clutch fitted to this Ferrari wasn't any different from the ones Lamborghini mounted in their tractors. So he drove the Ferrari to the Cento factory and had a clutch installed straight from the parts list of one of the tractor models, and the problem never returned. Ferruccio Lamborghini saw that his businesses were taking care of themselves very nicely. So in the early 60s, he had a new factory built on an industrial area in Sant'Agata. He wasn't interested in highly tuned exotics. He wanted to make a smooth-running V12 GT to rival Ferrari. Born a Taurus, he chose a raging bull as the company emblem. Lamborghini designed and built his first car, the 350 GTV, just in time for the 1963 Turin Motor Show, and it received positive reviews. Fueled by the feedback, he reworked the car and presented the production model 350 GT at the 1964 Geneva Auto Show. The 350 GT was powered by a detuned 270 brake horsepower 3.5 litre V12 mated to a 5-speed manual transmission. It can accelerate from 0 to 62 in 6.8 seconds and onto a top speed of 158 miles an hour. Hugely impressive figures in its day. Further revisions resulted in the 400 GT introduced in 1965, increasing the V12's displacement to 3.9 litres and giving it a power height to 320 brake horsepower. Then at the 1966 Geneva Auto Show, Lamborghini unveiled the 400 GT 2+2, a stretched version of the 400 GT that featured 2+2 seating with a revised roofline. Like its predecessors, the 400 GT 2+2 was well received by motoring journalists, and the revenue allowed further expansion of the manufacturing facilities and workforce. During this time, Lamborghini's 3 top engineers, Dallara, Stanzini and Wallace, put their own time into development of the prototype that they envisioned as a road car with racing pedigree, capable of winning on the track as well as being driven on the road by enthusiasts. Despite going against Ferruccio's original Grand Touring ethos, the company founder allowed his engineers to go ahead, deciding that it would be a useful marketing tool. A version with bodywork penned by Bertoni's Marcello Gandini debuted alongside the 400 GT 2+2 at the 1966 Geneva Motor Show. It was powered by a transversely mounted 350 horsepower 3.9 litre V12 derived from the 400 GT. Lamborghini's first mid-engine two-seater received a positive reaction at Geneva, so the prototype went into production the following year under a different name, taken from the toughest and smartest of fighting bulls, the Miura. At the 1968 Turin Motor Show, the Italian carmaker pulled the wraps off the Miura P400S, which added power windows, optional air conditioning, bright chrome trim around external windows, and a power bump up to 370 horsepower. The last and most famous Miura, the P400 SV or Miura SV, featured a further power hike up to a heady 380 horsepower. In total, 764 Miuras were made. In 1968, the replacement for the 400 GT arrived in the form of the Lamborghini Ilero. However, it failed to attract buyers with only 125 units sold between 1968 and 1969. The following year, design house Bertoni persuaded Lamborghini to allow them to design a brand new 4-seater. The result was a 2-door coupe named the Espada. It was once again powered by the Raging Bull's trusty 3.9 litre V12 and was the first Lamborghini offered with an optional automatic transmission. A total of 1,217 Espadas were sold, making it the most successful Lamborghini model to date. In 1970, the Girama was unveiled at that year's Geneva Motor Show. Another Bertoni-designed car, the Girama was built on a shortened platform of the Espada. It was initially offered as the 350 horsepower GT and was later revised to become the 365 horsepower GTS. Also in 1970, Lamborghini pulled the wraps off its 2+2 mid-engined Araco coupe at the Turin Auto Show. The Araco was marketed as a more affordable alternative to the contemporary Ferrari Dino and Maserati Merak. Then, with the 1973 oil crisis and wider economic downturn hitting sales of high-performance cars, Lamborghini got into difficulties and Ferruccio sold 51% of his company to longtime friend and Swiss businessman Georges-Henri Rossetti for $600,000. A year later, Ferruccio Lamborghini sold his remaining 49% stake in Lamborghini Automobili to René Leimer, a friend of Georges-Henri Rossetti. Having severed all his connections with the cars and tractors that bore his name, Lamborghini retired to an estate in the province of Perugia in central Italy, where he would remain until his death in 1993. The Lamborghini car company continued on without Ferruccio, and in 1974 the Italian car manufacturer unleashed the eye-popping Lamborghini Countach. Yet another Bertoni design, the Countach was initially powered by the traditional Lamborghini engine, tuned to produce 370 horsepower. This engine remained until 1982 when the Countach LP500S was launched. The updated version was fitted with a 4.8-litre V12 with the same power output of 370 horsepower. 3 years later, the engine was improved again, bored and stroked to 5.2 litres and given 4 valves per cylinder. This edition badged 5,000 QV. Power was up to 449 brake horsepower, with a 0 to 62 mph time of 4.9 seconds and a 183 mph top speed. The company went bankrupt though in 1978 and was purchased by brothers Jean-Claude and Patrick Mimran in 1980 for $3 million. As CEO and president, Patrick Mimran invested heavily in the company's expansion and was later credited as being the man who saved Lamborghini. The Lamborghini Jalpa was introduced in 1981. Patrick Mimran then sold Lamborghini to the Chrysler Corporation in 1987 for $25 million. And in 1988, following a fall in sales, they pulled the plug on Jalpa production. Meanwhile, in 1986, Lamborghini took a chance in launching their first four-wheel drive vehicle, the LM002 SUV. Brilliantly dubbed the Rambo Lambo, its aggressive styling and powerful engine made it a surprise success for the Italian carmaker. Equipped with a 290-litre fuel tank and a 5.2-litre V12 from the Countach, it was produced until 1993. In January 1990, the Diablo was launched. Once again penned by Bertoni, the Diablo was powered by a mid-mounted 5.7-litre 48-valve V12 producing 492 horsepower. This propelled the car from 0 to 62 miles an hour in 4.5 seconds and onto a top speed of 202 miles an hour. The car became four-wheel drive in 1993 with the introduction of the Diablo VT, and a special edition Diablo SE30 followed in 1994 to commemorate Lamborghini's 30th anniversary. Chrysler sold Lamborghini to Malaysian investment group Mycom Setco and Indonesian group V-Power Corporation in 1994. The Volkswagen Group then purchased the company in 1998 and placed it under the control of the Audi brand, which runs Lamborghini to this day. A facelifted Diablo arrived in 1999 in the form of the VT 6-litre, which pumped out a hefty 550 horsepower. In 2001, Audi introduced a new flagship car. The Murcielago was powered by a first-generation 6.2-litre V12 producing 572 horsepower, mated to a 6-speed manual gearbox. A Murcielago Roadster was introduced in 2004 and the second-generation LP640 launched in 2006. The ultimate version of the Murcielago, the LP674 Super Veloce, was introduced in 2009. In 2003, Lamborghini unveiled the all-wheel drive 493 brake horsepower Gallardo. Powered by an Audi-derived 5-litre V10, output was increased to 513 horsepower in 2006 with the launch of the open-top Gallardo Spider. The Gallardo is the most successful car to come off the Lamborghini production line, with over 13,000 cars sold to date. In 2007, Lamborghini had realized that building ultra-expensive, limited-run hypercars could be highly profitable. So they built 20 examples of the 650 horsepower Reventon, which instantly sold out. They went on to produce numerous hypercars over the years and continue to do so to this day. At the 2011 Geneva Motor Show, Lamborghini introduced the Aventador, its Murcielago replacement, powered by Lamborghini's new 700 horsepower 6.5-litre V12 engine. A Roadster was added to the lineup in 2012, and then both were replaced by the Aventador S in 2016 along with an S Roadster in 2017. The rise of SUVs was one moneymaker Lamborghini couldn't afford to ignore. Revealed in 2017, the Lamborghini Urus was powered by a 4-litre V8, developing 641 horsepower and 627 pound-feet of torque. Capable of 0 to 60 in 3.3 seconds, the Urus instantly became the fastest SUV on sale, with the exception of the top-spec Tesla Model X. The automotive world has a lot to thank Ferruccio Lamborghini for, and we must also give thanks to Enzo Ferrari for spurring him into action. It is notable that the man who gives his name to Lamborghini only owned the company for 9 years before he retired. The brand has evolved from Ferruccio's initial GT car concept, but I think we can be sure of an exciting future under Audi's control.